Baby found a German Shepherd trapped in a broken ATM. What happened next? Left everyone in tears. The whimpering was so faint that most people would have missed it, but not 5-year-old Marcus. What this little boy discovered that rainy Saturday morning would change dozens of lives forever, and the twist at the end will absolutely shatter your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Marcus pressed his small face against the cold glass of the abandoned bank window, his breath creating little clouds that expanded and disappeared. The rain had finally stopped after 3 days of storms, leaving downtown looking like someone had thrown a bucket of water over everything. Broken branches scattered the sidewalks, puddles reflected the gray morning sky, and somewhere, hidden in all that mess, something was crying. "Grandpa, listen," Marcus whispered, tugging at Frank's worn jacket sleeve. His grandfather, a retired bank security guard with hands that shook slightly from age, was trying to hurry past the old Commerce Bank building. The place had been closed for 2 years now, its windows covered with plywood, graffiti spreading across its walls like ivy. "Just the wind, buddy. This old building makes all sorts of noises." Frank's voice was gentle but tired. At 68, these morning walks with his grandson were getting harder, but he'd never admit it. Not when they were all Marcus had left. Marcus stopped walking completely. His sneakers, the ones with the holes near the toes that Frank kept meaning to replace, splashed in a puddle. "No, Grandpa. Someone's hurt. They're scared." The certainty in the boy's voice made Frank pause. Marcus had always been different. While other kids his age were learning their ABCs, Marcus would sit for hours watching ants work, claiming he understood what they were planning. When the neighbor's cat went missing, Marcus led them straight to it, trapped in a drainage pipe 3 blocks away. The boy said the cat had called him. "Marcus, we really should." The sound came again, clearer this time. A low, desperate whimper that seemed to echo from somewhere near the building's old ATM alcove. Frank felt his chest tighten. In his 30 years as a security guard, he'd developed an instinct for trouble, and right now, every alarm in his head was ringing. They moved closer to the ATM, or what was left of it. Vandals had destroyed the machine months ago, leaving it a twisted mess of metal and broken plastic. The screen hung at an odd angle. Wires spilled out like electronic intestines. And from somewhere inside that mechanical corpse came another whimper. "There!" Marcus pointed at a gap near the bottom of the machine, where the metal had been pried apart. 2 amber eyes gleamed in the darkness beyond. "Grandpa, it's a dog!" "She's stuck!" Frank knelt down, his knees protesting with sharp pops. Through the jagged opening, he could make out matted fur, the rise and fall of labored breathing. The dog was wedged in there somehow, trapped in what must have been a maintenance cavity behind the ATM. The space was too small for an animal that size. How had it even gotten in there? "We need to call animal control," Frank said, already reaching for his phone. "No!" Marcus's voice cracked with urgency. He dropped to his hands and knees, pressing his face close to the opening. "She's dying, Grandpa. She's been in there for days. No food, no water. She's giving up." Frank watched his grandson extend one small hand through the gap. Any sensible adult would have pulled the child back. The dog could bite, could have rabies, could be aggressive from fear. But something in Marcus's movements, the absolute absence of fear, made Frank hesitate. "Hi," Marcus whispered to the darkness. "I'm Marcus. I'm 5. Don't be scared." A low growl rumbled from inside the ATM. Frank tensed, ready to grab his grandson. But Marcus didn't pull back. Instead, he started humming. Just a simple tune, something Frank recognized from the boy's mother used to sing. The growling stopped. "She says her name is..." Marcus paused, his forehead wrinkling in concentration. "She doesn't have a real name. People called her bad things, mean things." Frank wanted to tell Marcus that dogs couldn't talk, that this was just his imagination. But the words died in his throat as he watched the amber eyes move closer to the opening. A black nose appeared, dry and cracked, then part of a muzzle, scarred and wounded. "Jesus," Frank breathed. Even in the dim light, he could see the damage. Old wounds, poorly healed. Scars that looked deliberate, not accidental. "Someone hurt her," Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. They hurt her a lot, Grandpa. For fun. The dog's tongue, pink and dry, barely touched Marcus's fingers. Just the briefest contact. But the boy's whole body seemed to relax, as if some important communication had passed between them. We have to get her out. Marcus's voice held a determination Frank had only heard once before, the day the boy had stood at his mother's hospital bed, insisting she wasn't really leaving, that she'd promised to stay. Marcus, buddy, she's too big. We can't... Hey, you folks okay? Both Frank and Marcus turned to see a man jogging toward them, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing running gear despite the wet weather. Frank instinctively moved between the stranger and his grandson. We're fine, Frank said curtly. The jogger slowed, hands visible and open, in a non-threatening gesture. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. I'm David. I live in the blue building across the street. Saw you kneeling here and thought maybe someone was hurt. There's a dog, Marcus said before Frank could respond. She's trapped in the ATM and she's dying and we have to save her right now. David's expression shifted from polite concern to genuine alarm. He moved closer, keeping his movements slow and obvious for Frank's benefit. May I look? Frank nodded reluctantly. David knelt beside Marcus, peering into the destroyed ATM. His sharp intake of breath confirmed what Frank already knew. This was bad. That's a German Shepherd, David said. Full grown. How the hell? Sorry, kid. How did she get in there? From above, Marcus said with that strange certainty. There's a hole in the top where the rain comes in. She fell through 3 days ago when the storm started. She can't get back up, and she can't fit through this hole. David looked at Frank with raised eyebrows. Frank shrugged. He'd stopped questioning how Marcus knew things. I've got tools in my truck, David said, already standing. Construction tools. I can probably pry this open wider, but... He hesitated, looking at the dog's visible injuries. She might be aggressive. Hurt animals often are. She won't hurt us, Marcus said. She's too tired to fight anymore. She just wants someone to help her. She's been calling for help for 3 days, but nobody heard her except me. David jogged back to his truck while Frank tried to process what was happening. His quiet Saturday morning walk had turned into a rescue operation. He thought about his fixed pension, the stack of bills on his kitchen table, Marcus's shoes with the holes. They couldn't afford to take on a sick dog. They could barely afford their own groceries. But then he looked at Marcus, still kneeling by the ATM, whispering promises to those amber eyes. The boy had lost so much already. His mother, gone 3 years now, from a cancer that ate her from the inside out. His father, who'd never been in the picture to begin with. Their old apartment, lost when Frank couldn't keep up with the rent on just his pension. David returned with a crowbar and a pair of heavy gloves. Okay, this might get loud, he warned, and we need to be careful. If she panics, she could hurt herself worse. Tell her what you're doing, Marcus instructed David, as serious as a tiny professor. Tell her it's going to be loud, but then she'll be free. David glanced at Frank again, but followed the boy's advice. All right, girl. This is going to be noisy and scary, but we're getting you out. Just hang on. The first crack of metal made the dog whimper. Marcus immediately started humming again, louder this time, his small hand still extended through the gap. David worked carefully, prying the damaged ATM panel away inch by inch. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the cool morning. There, David grunted, pulling a large section free. The opening was now big enough to see the dog fully. Frank's stomach turned. The German Shepherd was skeletal, every rib visible through patchy, matted fur. Old wounds covered her body, some scabbed over, others still raw. But worst of all was her neck, where something had cut so deep into the skin that the wound had become infected, swollen, and angry red. That's from a collar, David said, his voice tight with anger. Someone left a collar on her as she grew, never adjusted it. It embedded into her skin. Fighting, Marcus said quietly. They made her fight other dogs. But she wouldn't, so they hurt her more. David reached in slowly, talking in a low, steady voice. Easy, girl. I'm going to pick you up now. It might hurt, but then you'll be out. The dog's eyes rolled back, showing white. Her body tensed, but she didn't bite, didn't even growl. It was as if she'd used up all her fight just staying alive. David lifted her carefully, his muscles straining. She was big, even emaciated as she was. maybe 70 pounds of dog that should have been 90. As he pulled her free, her head lolled back, and for a terrifying moment, Frank thought she was dead. But Marcus was there, supporting her head with both hands, tears streaming down his face. "You're safe now," he whispered. "You're safe. You're safe. You're safe." The dog's eyes focused on Marcus's face. Her tail, scraggly and matted with mud, moved, just once, the smallest wag. "We need a vet," David said urgently. "Now." "I don't have a car," Frank admitted, feeling the weight of his poverty like a stone in his chest. "I do." "Come on." David was already moving toward his truck, carrying the dog like she weighed nothing. "There's an emergency animal hospital about 10 minutes from here." Frank wanted to protest, wanted to explain that they couldn't afford this, that they were barely surviving as it was. But Marcus was already following David, his small legs pumping to keep up, his eyes never leaving the dog. In the truck, Marcus insisted on sitting in the back with the dog's head in his lap. She was conscious, but barely, her breathing shallow and ragged. Frank could see David glancing in the rearview mirror, concern etched on his face. "She's not going to make it, is she?" Frank asked quietly. David's jaw tightened. "I don't know. She's in bad shape. Real bad." From the back seat, Marcus's voice rose clear and certain. "She'll make it. She has to. She has babies inside her." Frank twisted around to look at his grandson. "What? Marcus, how could you—" "She told me," Marcus said simply, stroking the dog's scarred head. "That's why she fought so hard to stay alive. For her babies." David's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "If that's true, if she's pregnant on top of everything else." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The emergency animal hospital was a low, modern building with two bright lights that made Frank squint. David carried the dog through the automatic doors, Marcus right beside him, Frank trailing behind, feeling useless and old. "We need help!" David called out. A young woman in scrubs appeared immediately, her eyes widening as she took in the dog's condition. "Oh my God, bring her back here now." They were ushered into an examination room that smelled of disinfectant and fear. The veterinarian doctor, Sarah Chen, was maybe 30, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and hands that moved with practiced efficiency. "How long has she been like this?" Dr. Chen asked, already hooking up an IV. "We just found her," Frank explained. "She was trapped in an old ATM. We don't know how long." 3 days, Marcus interrupted. "She's been trapped for 3 days. And before that, bad people had her. They made her fight, but she wouldn't, so they hurt her." Dr. Chen glanced at Marcus, then at Frank. Frank just shrugged. There was no point trying to explain something he didn't understand himself. The examination was thorough and increasingly grim. Dr. Chen's face grew more serious with each discovery. The embedded collar had caused a severe infection. There were multiple bite wounds in various stages of healing, signs of prolonged starvation. And then, as she ran the ultrasound over the dog's swollen belly, confirmation of what Marcus had somehow known. "She's pregnant, doctor," Chen announced. "I can see 5, maybe 6 puppies, about 6 weeks along." "Will they survive?" Marcus asked, his small hand still resting on the dog's head. Dr. Chen hesitated. "I'm going to be honest with you. This dog is critically ill. She's septic from the neck wound, severely malnourished, dehydrated, and traumatized. The fact that she's alive at all is miraculous. The pregnancy makes everything more complicated. Her body is trying to keep the puppies alive while barely keeping herself alive." "But you can save her?" Marcus's eyes were huge, pleading. "I can try, doctor," Chen said carefully, "but it's going to be expensive. And even with treatment, I can't guarantee—" "How much?" Frank interrupted, already knowing it would be more than he had. Dr. Chen looked uncomfortable. "For the initial stabilization, antibiotics, surgery to clean the neck wound, fluids, monitoring, we're looking at least $3,000. And that's just to start." Frank felt the number hit him like a physical blow. $3,000 might as well have been $3 million. He opened his mouth to explain, to apologize, to suggest they make the dog comfortable, and "I have $23.47, Marcus announced, pulling a small Spider-Man wallet from his pocket. "And I can do chores. I can wash dishes and sweep and take out trash. I'll work every day after school." The room went quiet except for the soft beep of the heart monitor they'd attached to the dog. Dr. Chen's eyes softened. David cleared his throat. Frank felt his chest tighten with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. "That's very generous, Doctor," Chen said gently to Marcus. "But I'll cover it," David said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. He shrugged, seeming embarrassed. "I mean, I can't pay all at once, but I can put down a deposit. Set up a payment plan." "You don't even know us," Frank said, stunned. David looked at Marcus, who was still focused entirely on the dog. "Kid found her. Kid wants to save her. Sometimes that's enough." Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment, watching Marcus whisper to the dog, watching the dog's eyes track the boy's movements despite her obvious pain. "Tell you what," she said finally, "let me stabilize her first. Get her through the next 24 hours. We can figure out payment later. There are programs, rescue groups that might help. But right now, we need to focus on keeping her alive." She began working with renewed energy, calling in a veterinary technician to assist. They sedated the dog lightly, began cleaning the infected neck wound. Marcus refused to leave, standing on a step-stool doctor. Chen provided so he could maintain contact with the dog's paw. "She needs a name," Marcus said suddenly. "A real name, not the mean things they called her." "What do you want to call her?" Frank asked. Marcus thought for a moment, his face serious. "Hope," he said finally. "Because she never gave up hope that someone would find her. And because she gives me hope that good things can still happen." Frank had to turn away, pretending to study a poster about heartworm prevention while he wiped his eyes. The next hours blurred together. Dr. Chen worked with quiet efficiency, cleaning wounds, administering medications, running tests. Hope remained conscious but calm, her eyes always finding Marcus whenever the pain got bad. The boy never left her side, talking to her in a steady stream about everything and nothing, about his school, about his favorite books, about how she was going to love living with them. That last part made Frank's stomach clench. Living with them? In their tiny apartment that barely fit the two of them? With his pension that barely covered rent and utilities? But looking at Marcus's face, the pure determination there, Frank knew the decision had already been made. "The neck wound is worse than I thought, Doctor," Chen said, peeling off bloody gloves. "The infection has spread deeper than I initially realized. She needs surgery to debride the dead tissue, but she's too weak right now. We need to get her stable first." "How long?" Frank asked. "If she makes it through the night, we can try surgery tomorrow." "But—" She hesitated, glancing at Marcus. "You should prepare yourselves. She might not make it through the night." "She will," Marcus said with absolute certainty. "She promised me." Dr. Chen gave Frank a look that said she'd seen too many promises broken in these rooms, but she nodded. "We'll do everything we can." They set up Hope in a kennel in the back, surrounded by warming blankets and IV lines. Marcus sat on the floor beside the kennel, his small fingers reaching through the bars to touch her paw. "You should go home, Doctor," Chen suggested gently. "Get some rest. We'll call if anything changes." "No," Marcus said simply. "She's scared of being alone. Bad things happened when she was alone." Frank looked at Dr. Chen helplessly. She sighed, then brought out a cushion and a blanket. "Okay, but just for tonight." David had left his number and departed, promising to check in the morning. Dr. Chen showed Frank where the coffee machine was, then returned to her other patients, and Frank sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair, watching his grandson maintain a vigil over a dying dog. Around midnight, Hope's breathing became labored. The heart monitor began beeping irregularly. Dr. Chen rushed in, checking vitals, adjusting medications. Her body's starting to shut down, she said quietly to Frank. "The infection is winning." Marcus stood up, his face fierce with determination. He leaned close to Hope's ear, whispering something Frank couldn't hear. Then louder, "You can't give up. Your babies need you. I need you. Please." Hope's eyes, which had been closing, opened fully, focused on Marcus. Her tail moved, just barely. "Please," Marcus said again, tears streaming down his face. "I already lost my mom. I can't lose you too." Frank felt his heart shatter. He moved to comfort his grandson, but stopped as he saw something impossible. Hope was struggling to lift her head, fighting against the sedation and pain. Her eyes locked with Marcus's, and something passed between them. Some communication deeper than words. The heart monitor steadied. Hope's breathing, while still labored, grew more regular. Dr. Chen stared at the monitors, then at the dog, then at Marcus. That's not... She was going into cardiac arrest. She decided to stay, Marcus said simply, sitting back down and resuming his hold on Hope's paw. She decided to fight. The rest of the night passed slowly. Frank dozed in his chair, waking periodically to check on Marcus, who never moved from his spot. Hope slept fitfully, occasionally whimpering, but each time Marcus would whisper to her, and she would calm. As dawn light crept through the windows, Dr. Chen returned, looking exhausted but amazed. Her vitals improved overnight, she announced, checking Hope over. The infection markers are still high, but she's stable enough for surgery. It's still risky, but she has a chance, Frank finished. Dr. Chen nodded. She has a chance. They prepared Hope for surgery, Marcus insisting on walking with her to the surgical suite doors. I'll be right here when you wake up, he promised. Right here. The surgery took 3 hours. 3 hours of Marcus sitting in the waiting room, refusing food, refusing to play with the toys doctor. Chen had offered, just sitting, staring at the doors, occasionally whispering things Frank couldn't hear. Finally, Doctor. Chen emerged, pulling off her surgical cap. She was smiling. The surgery went well. We removed the dead tissue, cleaned the wound properly. The infection was extensive, but we got it all. She's going to need weeks of antibiotics and careful wound management, but... She's going to live? Marcus asked. She's going to live, Doctor, Chen confirmed. And the puppy's heartbeats are still strong. Whatever you said to her last night, it worked. Marcus nodded as if this was exactly what he'd expected. Can I see her? Hope was still groggy from anesthesia, but her tail thumped weakly when Marcus appeared. The neck wound was bandaged now, clean white gauze replacing the infected mess. She looked better already, though still painfully thin. She wants to know about her puppies, Marcus said suddenly. Dr. Chen pulled up the ultrasound machine, without questioning how Marcus could know that. On the screen, 6 tiny hearts beat steadily. 6 puppies, she confirmed. All alive, all developing normally, despite everything. Hope's tail thumped harder. Over the next days, a routine developed. Frank would bring Marcus to the hospital before school, where the boy would spend an hour with Hope, feeding her by hand, talking to her. After school, they'd return, Marcus doing his homework on the floor beside Hope's kennel while she recovered. David visited daily, bringing supplies and refusing Frank's attempts to repay him. I've got a good job, he said simply. Let me help. Dr. Chen reduced her fees as much as she could, even staying after hours to provide treatment without charging for her time. There's something special here, she told Frank. That boy and that dog. I've never seen anything like it. Hope grew stronger each day. Her wounds healed. Her fur began to grow back in patches. She gained weight slowly, her ribs becoming less prominent. But more than the physical healing, there was something in her eyes that changed. The fear and desperation were fading, replaced by something that looked like trust. On the 5th day, Doctor, Chen made an announcement that chilled Frank to his core. I found something in Hope's medical workup, she said, pulling up records on her computer. That embedded collar had a microchip attached. It's been damaged, but I was able to recover some data. And, Frank asked, though he dreaded the answer. The chip was registered to a breeding operation that was shut down 2 years ago for connections to dog fighting. The owner, Vincent Russo, served 6 months and is now out on probation. Frank felt his blood run cold. He'll want her back. Legally, he might have a claim, Doctor, Chen admitted, even though the operation was illegal if he can prove ownership. No! Marcus's voice was sharp, frightened. He can't have her. He's the one who hurt her. Dr. Chen looked troubled. I've seen this before. These people view dogs as property, as investments. Hope's puppies, if they're from fighting bloodlines, could be worth thousands on the black market. We have to do something, Frank said, his mind racing. We can't let her go back to that. I've already called animal control and reported the situation, Doctor, Chen said. They're opening an investigation. But in the meantime, we need to be careful. If Russo finds out where Hope is... She didn't need to finish. Frank understood. They'd rescued Hope from one prison, but her past might drag her back into another. That night, Frank made a decision. He called David, explained the situation. "We need to get her out of the hospital," David agreed immediately. "If this Russo guy is looking for her, the hospital is the first place he'll check." "But she still needs medical care," Frank protested. "Dr. Chen can make house calls. We'll set up a space in your apartment. Make it work." Frank thought of his tiny apartment, already cramped with just him and Marcus. But then he thought of Hope's eyes when she looked at Marcus, the way her whole body relaxed when the boy was near. "Okay," he said, "we'll make it work." The next morning, they moved Hope home. David and Dr. Chen helped carry her up the 2 flights of stairs to Frank's apartment. They'd set up a corner of the living room with blankets, making a safe, warm space for her to recover. Marcus had insisted on decorating the space with his drawings, pictures of dogs and puppies, and a little boy, all smiling. Hope's tail wagged when she saw them. "Welcome home," Marcus whispered, settling beside her with a book. "You're safe now. This is your forever home." Frank wished he could believe that was true, but that night, as he stood at the window looking out at the street below, he noticed a van parked across the street. Dark windows, no visible license plate. It hadn't been there that morning. "Grandpa?" Marcus appeared beside him, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Hope says someone's watching us." Frank's blood chilled. "How does she know that?" Marcus shrugged. "She can smell them. The same smell from the bad place. Cigarettes and something chemical. Mean smells." Frank pulled Marcus away from the window, his mind racing. If Russo had found them already... "We're going to be okay," he told Marcus, trying to sound confident. "Hope is safe here with us." But even as he said it, he saw Hope struggling to stand, positioning herself between Marcus and the door despite her weakness. Her eyes were alert, focused, the same look Frank had seen in guard dogs during his years as a security officer. She knew, somehow, she knew danger was coming. "Don't worry, Hope," Marcus said, hugging the dog gently. "We won't let them take you. I promise." Hope licked Marcus's face, then settled back down, but her eyes never left the door, and Frank, watching them both, made his own promise. Whatever it took, whatever it cost, he would protect them both. This dog had given Marcus something to love again, something to fight for, and Frank would fight too. The van outside revved its engine once, then pulled away. But Frank knew it would be back. This was just the beginning. The van returned 3 nights later. Frank saw it first, that same dark vehicle with tinted windows, parked just far enough away to seem coincidental, but close enough to watch their building. His hands trembled as he pulled the curtain closed, his old security guard instincts screaming danger. "Marcus?" he called softly, not wanting to alarm the boy. "Come away from the window." But Marcus was already by Hope's side, his small hands stroking her fur as she stood rigid, a low growl rumbling in her chest. The dog's transformation over the past 3 days had been remarkable. She could walk now, though slowly, and her eyes had lost some of their haunted quality. But right now, those eyes were fixed on the door with an intensity that made Frank's skin crawl. "They're coming," Marcus said, his voice eerily calm. "Hope can hear them in the stairwell. 2 men. They smell like the bad place." Frank's heart hammered as he grabbed his phone, fumbling with Officer Maria Rodriguez's card. She'd given it to him after doctor. Chen reported the situation, telling him to call day or night. His fingers shook as he dialed. "Officer Rodriguez? They're here. The men looking for the dog. They're in our building. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone except me. I'm 8 minutes away." 8 minutes. Frank looked at the flimsy deadbolt on their apartment door, the one he'd been meaning to replace for months. 8 minutes might as well be 8 hours. The footsteps in the hallway grew louder, stopped right outside their door. The doorknob rattled. Hope's growl grew louder, more threatening than Frank would have thought possible from a dog still recovering from near death. She positioned herself directly between Marcus and the door, her body tense despite the visible pain it caused her. "Mr. Wilson?" a voice called through the door, smooth, professional, nothing overtly threatening. "My name is Vincent Russo. I believe you have my dog." Frank said nothing, pulling Marcus behind him, creating another barrier between the boy and whatever was about to happen. "I have paperwork. the voice continued. Legal documentation proving ownership. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want my property back. Property. The word made Frank's stomach turn. Hope wasn't property. She was the creature who'd given his grandson back his smile, who'd fought death itself to stay with them. The police are on their way, Frank called out, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. There was a pause, then a laugh, cold and unpleasant. The police? For a man retrieving his own dog? Come now, Mr. Wilson. Let's be reasonable. I'm even willing to compensate you for your trouble. $500 for taking care of her. She's not for sale, Marcus's voice rang out before Frank could stop him. You heard her. You made her fight. Another pause. When Russo spoke again, his voice had lost its false friendliness. That's a serious accusation, boy. Be careful what you say. Words can have consequences. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Frank felt rage rise in his chest, hot and fierce. How dare this man threaten his grandson? Hope is pregnant, Frank said loudly, hoping to buy time. Moving her could kill the puppies. The puppies are exactly why I need her back, Russo replied. Those puppies are already sold, $20,000 worth of purebred fighting stock. You're interfering with my business, old man. Hope's growl turned into a bark, sharp and warning. Her whole body shook with the effort, the surgical site on her neck straining against the bandages. Easy, girl, Marcus whispered, but Hope didn't calm. If anything, she grew more agitated. Then Frank heard it, the sound of metal on metal. Someone was picking the lock. Get to the bedroom, Frank ordered Marcus. Now. But Marcus didn't move. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself beside Hope. No, we stay together. The lock clicked open, the door swung inward, and Vincent Russo entered Frank's apartment like he owned it. He was younger than Frank expected, maybe 40, with slicked back hair and expensive clothes that seemed out of place in the rundown building. Behind him stood another man, bigger, with the kind of muscles that came from prison yards rather than gyms. There she is, Russo said, his eyes locking onto Hope. Ghost, you've caused me a lot of trouble, girl. Hope's lips pulled back, showing teeth, a warning that even in her weakened state, she would fight. Don't call her that, Marcus said, his small voice fierce. Her name is Hope. Russo's gaze shifted to Marcus, and something in his expression made Frank step forward, putting himself between them. You need to leave, now. Or what? Russo asked, amused. You'll call the police? They're already coming, right? Let them. I have ownership papers. The chip in her neck proves she's mine. You're the ones breaking the law, harboring stolen property. You embedded a collar so deep it nearly killed her, Frank shot back. You starved her. Beat her. That's animal cruelty. Russo shrugged. Prove it. My word against yours. And who are the cops going to believe? A businessman with proper documentation, or an old man and a kid with a sob story? He took a step toward Hope. She snapped at the air, her teeth clicking inches from his hand. Still got some fight in you? Russo mused. Good. The puppies will inherit that. He looked at his companion. Tony, get the leash. Tony pulled out a heavy chain leash with a pronged collar designed to cause pain. Hope saw it, and something changed in her eyes. The defiance crumbled, replaced by pure terror. She began to shake, pressing herself against Marcus. She remembers that collar, Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. You used it to hurt her when she wouldn't fight. You made her watch other dogs die. Russo's eyes narrowed. How could you possibly know? Because she told me, Marcus shouted. She shows me pictures in my head. The dark room with the concrete floor, the cage that was too small, the other dogs crying, the smell of blood and fear and... Shut up, Russo snapped, his composure cracking. Tony, get the damn dog. Tony moved forward, but Hope lunged, her teeth sinking into his reaching hand. He cursed, yanking back, blood dripping from the wound. Vicious animal, Russo said with satisfaction. Attacked without provocation. That's grounds for putting her down. Unless, of course, you cooperate. The sound of... Sirens filled the air, growing closer. Russo's jaw tightened. This isn't over, he said, backing toward the door. That dog is legally mine. The puppies are mine. And one way or another, I'll get them back. He and Tony left just as Officer Rodriguez's voice echoed in the stairwell. Police! Step away from the apartment." Frank's knees nearly buckled with relief as Officer Rodriguez entered, hand on her weapon, taking in the scene. The broken lock, Hope's defensive posture, Marcus's tear-stained face. "They broke in," Frank said quickly. "Russo and another man. They tried to take Hope." Officer Rodriguez's expression hardened. "Did they threaten you?" "Yes," Marcus said. "They said words have consequences. And they tried to put a hurt collar on Hope." Officer Rodriguez spoke into her radio, calling for backup to search for Russo. Then she knelt beside Marcus and Hope, her expression softening. "You're safe now," she said. "Both of you." But even as she said it, Frank knew it wasn't true. Russo had money, lawyers, connections, and he wanted those puppies. The next morning brought a new crisis. Hope had started bleeding from her surgical site, the stress of the confrontation having torn some of the healing tissue. Dr. Chen arrived within minutes of Frank's panicked call, her medical bag in hand. "The wound is infected again," she said after examining Hope. The stress caused her immune system to crash. And, she paused, running the ultrasound over Hope's belly. "I'm detecting irregular heartbeats in 2 of the puppies." Marcus, who hadn't left Hope's side since the break-in, looked up with wide eyes. "They're dying?" "They're in distress, doctor," Chen said carefully. "Hope's body is struggling to support them while fighting the infection. She needs immediate intervention." "What kind of intervention?" Frank asked, dreading the answer. "Ideally, she needs to be in a hospital setting. 4 antibiotics, constant monitoring, possibly emergency surgery if the puppies continue to deteriorate." Dr. Chen's face was grim. "But if Russo knows she was at my clinic before—" "He'll look there first," Frank finished. They were trapped. Hope needed medical care they couldn't provide at home, but taking her anywhere public risked Russo finding her. "Wait," David said. He'd arrived shortly after Dr. Chen, having heard about the break-in from Officer Rodriguez. "My sister has a farm about an hour outside the city. She's got a barn we could convert into a temporary medical space. It's isolated, secure. I can't leave my practice for days, Doctor," Chen said, though she looked thoughtful. "But I know someone who might help. Dr. Nathan Brooks. He's semi-retired, does volunteer work with rescue animals. He might be willing to stay on site." Frank looked at Marcus, who was whispering to Hope, his small hands gentle on her swollen belly. The boy looked up, meeting his grandfather's eyes. "Hope says yes," Marcus said simply. "She trusts us to keep her baby safe." The move happened that night under cover of darkness. David's truck, Hope wrapped in blankets, Marcus refusing to let go of her paw. Dr. Chen had stabilized her as much as possible, but Hope's breathing was labored, her eyes glazed with pain and fever. The farm belonged to David's sister, Martha, a woman in her 50s who took one look at Hope and immediately began preparing a space in her heated barn. No questions, no complaints, just quiet efficiency. "Used to raise shepherds myself," she said, spreading fresh straw and setting up heat lamps. "Know the breed. Loyal to the death." Dr. Nathan Brooks arrived shortly after, a tall man with silver hair and the kind of steady hands that spoke of decades of experience. He took over Hope's care with a competence that finally allowed Frank to breathe. "The infection is severe," he said after his initial examination, "but not insurmountable. The puppies, however." He showed them the ultrasound screen. "They're coming early. Tonight, maybe tomorrow. Her body can't sustain the pregnancy any longer." Marcus's face went pale. "But it's too soon. They'll die." "Not necessarily, Doctor," Brooks said gently. "At 6 weeks, they have a chance. But it's going to be touch and go." The next hours blurred together. Hope's labor began just after midnight, her body too weak to handle it properly. Dr. Brooks worked with calm efficiency, but Frank could see the concern in his eyes. "First puppy is breech," he announced. "I need to turn it." Hope cried out, a sound that tore through Frank's heart. Marcus was right there, his small hands on her head, whispering constantly. "You're so brave," he told her. "The bravest dog in the whole world. Your babies are going to be okay, I promise." The first puppy emerged still and silent. Dr. Brooks immediately began working on it, rubbing it with a towel, clearing its airways. Nothing. "No," Marcus said, taking the tiny body from Dr. Brooks, "you're not giving up." Your mama fought too hard for you." He held the puppy close to his chest, whispering something Frank couldn't hear, and then, impossibly, a tiny squeak. The puppy moved just slightly. Alive. Dr. Brooks stared. I've never... But there was no time to marvel. The second puppy was coming. One by one, Hope delivered 6 puppies. Each one seemed to take more from her depleted body. By the 4th, she was barely conscious. By the 6th, her heart rate was dropping dangerously. "She's going into shock, doctor," Brooks said urgently. "Her body is shutting down." "No!" Marcus placed all 6 puppies against Hope's belly, their tiny bodies seeking warmth and milk. "Look, Hope! Look what you did. 6 perfect babies. You did it." Hope's eyes, which had been closing, focused on the squirming puppies. Her tail moved just once. "That's right," Marcus continued. "They need you. I need you. You can't leave now." Dr. Brooks was administering emergency medications, but he shook his head at Frank. The meaning was clear. Hope was dying. Frank knelt beside his grandson. "Marcus, sometimes we have to let go." "No," Marcus said firmly. "She's not giving up. She just needs to remember why she's fighting." He leaned close to Hope's ear. "Remember the bad place? Remember how you survived everything they did to you? You're stronger than this. You're the strongest dog ever. And now, you have a family. A real family that loves you." Hope's breathing steadied slightly. Her eyes found Marcus's face. "That's it," Marcus encouraged. "Stay with us." Stay. The next hour was the longest of Frank's life. Hope balanced on the edge, neither improving nor deteriorating. The puppies nursed weakly, their mother barely able to respond to them. Dr. Brooks never left her side, adjusting medications, monitoring vital signs. As dawn broke through the barn windows, Hope's fever finally broke. Her breathing deepened. She lifted her head slightly, looking at her puppies with something like wonder. "There she is, Doctor," Brooks said, relief evident in his voice. "She's coming back." But their relief was short-lived. Martha, who'd been keeping watch, rushed into the barn. "There's a car at the end of the drive," she said. "Black sedan. It's just sitting there." Frank's blood chilled. "Russo found us." "How?" David demanded. Officer Rodriguez, who'd stayed the night to provide security, was already on her radio. "I need backup at the Riverside farm. Possible threat to witnesses." "He must have followed us," Frank said, cursing himself for not being more careful. "Or he's tracking her somehow, Doctor," Brooks said suddenly. "The chip. Even damaged, if he has the right equipment." "We need to move," Officer Rodriguez said. "Now." "We can't move Hope, Doctor," Brooks protested. "She just gave birth. The stress could kill her. They were trapped. Again." "I'll go talk to him," Marcus said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at the 5-year-old boy. "Absolutely not," Frank said. "He won't hurt me," Marcus said with that strange certainty. "Not with the police here, and I need to tell him something." Before anyone could stop him, Marcus walked out of the barn. Frank and Officer Rodriguez rushed after him, but the boy was already halfway to the road where the black sedan waited. The car door opened. Russo stepped out, his expression unreadable. "Hello, Mr. Russo," Marcus called out, his voice carrying in the morning air. "I want to show you something." Russo laughed. "You've got guts, kid. What could you possibly have to show me?" Marcus pulled out his phone, Frank's old one that he used for games. "Videos," he said, "of Hope, of what you did to her." Russo's expression darkened. "There are no videos." "There are now," Marcus said. "Dr. Chen documented everything, every scar, every wound. The infection from the collar you embedded, it's all evidence." "Evidence of what? A dog getting injured? Happens all the time." "Evidence of pattern abuse," Officer Rodriguez said, stepping forward. "Combined with your previous conviction, it's enough to violate your probation." Russo's jaw tightened. "You can't prove I did any of that." "Actually, we can," another voice said. A man emerged from behind the barn, someone Frank didn't recognize, thin, nervous-looking, with the hollow eyes of someone carrying guilt. "Jimmy?" Russo's voice was sharp. "What are you doing here?" "I'm done, Vinny," Jimmy said. "I can't do it anymore." "What we did to those dogs? It ain't right." "You son of—" "I kept records," Jimmy interrupted. Videos, photos, documentation of every fight, every training session, including what you did to Ghost, to Hope. Russo lunged for Jimmy, but Officer Rodriguez and David were faster, restraining him. Vincent Russo, you're under arrest for violation of probation, animal cruelty, and breaking and entering, Officer Rodriguez said, cuffing him. As they led Russo away, he turned back to look at Marcus. This isn't over, kid. Those puppies are worth a fortune. Someone will come for them. Marcus met his gaze steadily. No, they won't. Because they're not fighting dogs anymore. They're family dogs. Hope's babies are going to help people, not hurt them. After Russo was taken away, Jimmy explained everything. He'd been part of Russo's operation for years, but seeing Hope near death in that ATM had broken something in him. He'd been the one to call in the anonymous tip about her location to animal control, hoping someone would save her. I recognized her even through all the damage, he said, unable to look at Hope directly. She was the gentlest dog we had. Refused to fight no matter what we did. Russo was going to kill her, but then he found out she was pregnant by his champion fighter. Suddenly she was valuable again. Why didn't you help her yourself? Frank asked, anger simmering. Jimmy hung his head. I was a coward. But when I heard a kid had saved her, that she'd survived and had her puppies, I couldn't let Russo get them back. Those puppies deserve better. With his testimony and evidence, Russo was facing serious prison time. But that didn't solve all their problems. The puppies need round-the-clock care, Doctor, Brooks explained. They're premature, and Hope can't produce enough milk for all 6. We'll take shifts, Martha said immediately, bottle feeding, keeping them warm. And so began a routine that consumed the next weeks. Every 2 hours, someone was feeding puppies, checking temperatures, making sure each one was thriving. Marcus named them all: courage, joy, faith, honor, grace, and the smallest one, chance. Hope recovered slowly but steadily, her strength returning as she watched her puppies grow. She was a devoted mother, but she seemed to understand that she needed help, allowing the humans to handle her babies without protest. Marcus spent every moment he could with them, and his connection to the animals only seemed to grow stronger. He knew when Chance wasn't eating enough before anyone else noticed. He sensed that Faith had a slight respiratory infection before symptoms appeared. It was as if he could feel what they felt, understand what they needed. He's got a gift, Doctor, Brooks told Frank one evening as they watched Marcus surrounded by puppies, Hope's head in his lap. I've seen animal communicators before, but nothing like this. Is it real? Frank asked. Or just a traumatized kid projecting onto animals? Dr. Brooks was quiet for a moment. Does it matter? Real or not, he saved Hope, and she saved him right back. Look at him, Frank. When's the last time you saw him this happy? Frank had to admit the change in Marcus was remarkable. The quiet, withdrawn boy who'd barely spoken since his mother's death was now chattering constantly, laughing as puppies climbed over him, confidently directing their care. When the puppies were 8 weeks old, healthy and playful, the question of their future arose. We can't keep them all, Frank said practically, though it broke his heart to say it. We can barely afford Hope. Marcus nodded solemnly. Hope knows. She wants her babies to help other people, like they helped us. They decided to be very careful about who adopted the puppies. Marcus insisted on meeting every potential family, and his instincts proved uncanny. The first family to come had all the right credentials: big house, fenced yard, experience with dogs. But Marcus took one look at them and shook his head. They want a guard dog, he said quietly to Frank. Someone to make them look tough. Courage deserves better. The family left empty-handed, offended by the rejection. But then came Mrs. Patterson, an elderly widow whose husband had recently died. She was frail, walking with a cane, living alone. She needs Joy, Marcus announced, placing the wiggliest puppy in her arms. And Joy needs someone to make happy. Mrs. Patterson's eyes filled with tears as Joy licked her face enthusiastically. Oh my, oh she's perfect. One by one, Marcus matched puppies to families. Faith went to a veteran with PTSD who needed a companion. Honor to a family with an autistic child who struggled to connect with people but loved animals. Grace to a teenage girl recovering from a car accident that left her partially paralyzed. "How do you know?" Frank asked Marcus after each successful match. Marcus shrugged. "I just feel it, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together. Only Chance remained, the smallest puppy who'd almost died at birth. He stays," Marcus said firmly. "Hope wants him to stay. He's going to be special." Frank wanted to argue. They couldn't afford 2 dogs, but looking at Hope curled protectively around Chance, he knew Marcus was right. Some things were more important than money. The weeks turned to months. Hope grew strong and healthy, her coat glossy, the scars fading though, never completely disappearing. She became Marcus's constant shadow, and he hers. Where one went, the other followed. Chance grew too, though he remained smaller than his siblings. But what he lacked in size, he made up for in intelligence and intuition. Like his mother, he seemed to understand Marcus in a way that went beyond normal dog behavior. The story of their rescue had spread through the community. Donations had come in to help with medical bills. Dr. Chen visited regularly, amazed by Hope's complete recovery. Even Officer Rodriguez stopped by, bringing toys for the dogs and checking on the family. "Russo got 15 years, she told Frank one day. "The evidence Jimmy provided exposed a whole network. Dozens of dogs have been rescued because of what you and Marcus did." Frank felt pride swell in his chest. They'd done more than save one dog. They'd helped shut down an entire operation. But the biggest change was in Marcus. The boy who'd barely spoken now couldn't stop talking. He told everyone about Hope, about how brave she was, how she'd survived the impossible. His teachers reported he was more engaged, making friends, excelling in his studies. "Hope saved me," Marcus told Frank one evening as they sat on the couch, Hope at their feet, Chance curled in Marcus's lap. "When Mom died, I felt like I was in a dark place, like Hope's bad place. But she showed me that even when terrible things happen, you can still find good things. You can still have hope." Frank pulled his grandson close, his own eyes misty. "You saved her too, buddy. You both saved each other." 6 months after the rescue, they received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Brooks arrived with a woman Frank didn't recognize, professional-looking, with kind eyes and a warm smile. "This is Dr. Patricia Hendricks," Dr. Brooks explained. "She studies human-animal bonds, particularly in cases of trauma recovery. She's heard about Marcus and Hope." Dr. Hendricks spent hours observing Marcus with the dogs, taking notes, asking gentle questions. Finally, she sat down with Frank. "Your grandson has an extraordinary gift," she said. "His empathetic connection with animals is unlike anything I've documented. With proper development, he could help so many animals and people." "What do you mean?" Frank asked. "Animal-assisted therapy is a growing field. People like Marcus who can genuinely connect with animals and understand their needs are invaluable. I'd like to offer him a scholarship to a summer program for young people interested in animal therapy." Frank's first instinct was to refuse. Marcus had been through enough changes. But looking at his grandson's excited face, the way Hope's tail wagged as if she understood, he knew this was right. That summer, Marcus attended the program, Hope by his side as his registered emotional support animal. He learned about animal behavior, therapy techniques, and most importantly, that his gift was real and valuable. When he returned, he was different, more confident, more purposeful. "I know what I want to do when I grow up," he announced. "I want to help animals who've been hurt, like Hope, and help them help people who are hurting too." They started small. Marcus and Hope began visiting the local nursing home, bringing joy to elderly residents who rarely had visitors. Then, the children's hospital, where Hope's gentle presence calmed frightened kids facing medical procedures. Everywhere they went, people were amazed by the connection between boy and dog. Hope seemed to know exactly who needed her most, gravitating toward the loneliest, the saddest, the most afraid. And Marcus translated her intentions, helping people understand what comfort she was offering. One day at the children's hospital, they met a little girl named Amy, who hadn't spoken since a car accident that killed her parents. The doctors had tried everything, but Amy remained silent, withdrawn. Hope walked straight to her, ignoring all the other children. She laid her big head in Amy's lap and stayed there, patient and still. "She says she understands," Marcus told Amy quietly. "She lost her family too, in the bad place. But she found a new family, and you will too." Amy's hand moved to Hope's head, stroking the soft fur. And then, so quietly the adults almost missed it, she whispered, "Pretty dog." The medical staff was stunned. Amy's first words in 3 months, coaxed out by a rescued German shepherd and a 5-year-old boy. Word of the breakthrough spread. Soon, Marcus and Hope were being invited to work with more trauma victims, abuse survivors, children with autism, veterans with PTSD. Wherever there was pain that traditional therapy couldn't reach, they went. Chance grew into his role too, showing the same intuitive understanding as his mother. He worked primarily with children, his smaller size less intimidating, his playful nature bringing out smiles in the most withdrawn kids. A year after the rescue, they returned to the abandoned bank where it all began. The building was being demolished, turned into a community garden. Marcus stood with Hope and Chance, watching the old ATM being hauled away. "That's where we found you," Marcus told Hope, though of course she remembered. "The worst day of your life became the best day of mine." Hope leaned against him, her tail wagging slowly. The demolition crew had stopped to watch them, word having spread about the famous rescue. One of the workers approached. "You're the kid who saved the dog?" he asked. Marcus nodded, suddenly shy. "My daughter has autism," the man said. "Doesn't connect with people easily. But she saw you and Hope on the news, and now she wants a dog. Says if a dog could help you, maybe one could help her." "Every dog is different," Marcus said seriously. "But Hope's puppies are special. I can feel it." He gave the man, Dr. Chen's contact information. She'd started a program matching rescue dogs with families in need, inspired by Hope's story. As they walked home, Frank reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, he'd been a tired old man raising a traumatized grandson, barely making ends meet, just surviving. Now they had purpose. They had family, not just Hope and Chance, but David and Martha, Dr. Chen and Dr. Brooks, Officer Rodriguez, and all the people whose lives they had touched. "Grandpa," Marcus said suddenly, "Hope wants to know if we can go back to the nursing home tomorrow. Mrs. Eleanor is sad again, and Hope thinks she can help." Frank smiled. "Of course we can." That night, as they settled in for bed, Hope on her bed in the corner, Chance curled up with Marcus, Frank in his chair. Marcus asked a question that stopped Frank's heart. "Do you think Mom can see us? See how Hope helped us?" Frank moved to sit on Marcus's bed, gathering the boy into his arms. "I think she can, and I think she's proud of you. You took something terrible, losing her, and turned it into something beautiful. You saved Hope, and then you used that love to help others." "Hope saved me too," Marcus said, reaching out to stroke the dog's head. "We saved each other." As if in agreement, Hope's tail thumped against the floor. Chance yawned and snuggled closer to Marcus. And Frank, watching his little family, felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete contentment. They might not have much money, might live in a tiny apartment, might face challenges ahead. But they had each other. They had love. They had hope. The story could have ended there, a perfect circle of rescue and redemption. But life had one more twist in store. 2 years passed. Marcus was now 7, more confident and articulate about his gift. Hope had become something of a local celebrity. Her therapy work featured in newspapers and on local news. Chance had grown into a skilled therapy dog in his own right. They were a team, bringing healing wherever they went. Then one day, Doctor Chen called with unusual news. "There's someone who wants to meet you," she said. "All of you. She says it's important." They met at Dr. Chen's clinic. The woman waiting for them was well-dressed, professional, probably in her 40s. But there was something familiar about her eyes. "Hello, Marcus," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "My name is Rebecca." "Rebecca Russo?" Frank tensed, pulling Marcus behind him. "If you're related to Vincent, he's my brother," Rebecca said quickly. "But I'm nothing like him. I've spent years trying to make amends for what my family did. When I heard about Hope, about what Vincent did to her, I had to come." "What do you want?" Frank asked suspiciously. Rebecca reached into her bag, pulling out a thick envelope. "This is $50,000. It's from the sale of Vincent's assets after his conviction. Legally, it should go to his victims. Hope was his victim. This money belongs to her, to you." Frank stared at the envelope, stunned. $50,000 would change everything. They could move to a bigger apartment, get proper equipment for therapy work, pay off debts. But Marcus stepped forward, his small face serious. "We don't want your money." "Marcus," Frank started, but the boy continued. "Hope doesn't want it either. She says money from bad things doesn't make good things. It just makes more bad." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "Then what can I do? How can I make this right?" Marcus looked at Hope, then back at Rebecca. "Do you really want to help?" Rebecca nodded. "Use the money to save other dogs like Hope. Dogs from fighting rings who need medical care and new homes. That's what Hope wants." Rebecca stared at the 7-year-old boy, then at the scarred German shepherd sitting calmly beside him. "You're refusing $50,000? We don't need it," Marcus said simply. "We have everything we need, but other dogs don't. They're still trapped in bad places, waiting for someone to save them." Rebecca was crying openly now. "Vincent always said animals were just property, things to be used, but you see them as family." "They are family," Marcus corrected. "Hope taught me that." Rebecca left with the money and a mission. Within months, she'd established the Hope Foundation, a rescue organization specifically for dogs saved from fighting rings. The $50,000 became $100,000 as others contributed, inspired by the story. Marcus and Hope became the foundation's ambassadors, visiting rescue centers, helping evaluate dogs, matching them with families. Marcus's gift for understanding traumatized animals proved invaluable in rehabilitation efforts. One day, they received a special invitation. The mayor wanted to give Hope a Citizens Award for her therapy work. The ceremony would be held at the city hall, broadcast on local television. "We'll be famous," Marcus said excitedly. Frank laughed. "We're already famous in the ways that matter." The ceremony was beautiful. Hope, wearing a special vest identifying her as a therapy dog, sat proudly beside Marcus as the mayor spoke about their journey, from dying in an ATM to saving lives through therapy work, from abandoned to beloved, from victim to hero. "This dog and this boy remind us that healing is possible," the mayor said. "That love can overcome cruelty. That hope, real hope, can transform lives." As they stood for photos, Hope suddenly tensed, her nose lifted, sniffing the air. Then she pulled away from Marcus, something she never did, moving purposefully through the crowd. "Hope!" Marcus called, following her. She stopped at a man sitting alone in the back, hunched over, trying to be invisible. He was homeless, dirty, clearly trying to stay warm in the city hall. Security was moving toward him, but Hope got there first. She sat directly in front of him, placing her paw on his knee. The man looked up, and Frank gasped. It was Jimmy, Vincent Russo's former partner, who'd testified against him. He'd clearly fallen on hard times since then. "Ghost," Jimmy whispered, recognizing her despite the healthy weight and glossy coat. "Is it really you?" Hope's tail wagged once, slowly. Marcus approached carefully. "Her name is Hope now." Jimmy's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry for everything. I see you in my dreams, all the dogs we hurt. I can't forget, can't forgive myself." Marcus looked at Hope, then back at Jimmy. "She forgives you. How can she, after everything?" "Because holding on to anger hurts more than letting it go," Marcus said, wisdom beyond his years flowing through him. "Hope says you saved her by telling the truth. Now you need to save yourself." Security had arrived, ready to escort Jimmy out. But the mayor, who'd witnessed the exchange, held up a hand. "This man stays," she said. "If Hope says he belongs here, he belongs here." That moment, broadcast on live television, changed everything again. The image of Hope, a dog who'd been tortured by this man's associates, choosing to comfort him, went viral. It became a symbol of forgiveness, of redemption, of the possibility for change. Jimmy got help, addiction treatment, job training, housing assistance. He became one of the Hope Foundation's most dedicated volunteers, using his inside knowledge of fighting operations to help rescue more dogs. "She saved me twice," he told Frank one day, as they watched him work with a newly rescued pit bull. "Once when you found her in that ATM, because it made me realize what we were doing was evil. And again when she forgave me. I didn't deserve it, but she gave it anyway." Years passed. Marcus grew from a traumatized 5-year-old into a confident, compassionate young man. Hope aged gracefully, her muzzle growing white, her steps slower but still determined. Chance took over more of the therapy work as his mother tired more easily. On Marcus's 13th birthday, they gathered everyone who'd been part of their journey: David and Martha, Dr. Chen and Dr. Brooks, Officer Rodriguez, Rebecca, Jimmy, the families who'd adopted Hope's puppies, now all grown with puppies of their own. Even Mrs. Patterson was there, Joy still by her side, both gray but happy. "None of this would have happened if Grandpa hadn't listened to me that day," Marcus said, addressing the crowd. "If he'd walked past that ATM like everyone else, Hope would have died. Her puppies would never have been born. All the people and animals we've helped would still be hurting." He looked at Hope, lying on her special bed, surrounded by her descendants. One moment of kindness, one decision to help, changed hundreds of lives. That's what Hope taught me. That small acts of love create ripples that go on forever. Frank felt tears on his cheeks. His daughter would have been so proud of the man her son was becoming. That night, after everyone had gone home, Marcus sat with Hope in their old spot by the window. She was tired. He could feel it. Not sick, just complete. She'd done what she came to do. "It's okay," he whispered to her. "You can rest when you're ready. You've done enough, more than enough." Hope lived another 6 months, each day a gift. She passed peacefully in her sleep, Marcus and Frank by her side, Chance keeping watch. The entire city seemed to mourn with them. The news ran segments on her life. The Hope Foundation created a memorial fund in her name, but Marcus didn't mourn the way Frank expected. There was sadness, yes, but also something else. Peace. Acceptance. "She's not really gone," Marcus explained. "Every dog we saved because of her, every person who learned to love again because of her therapy work, every bit of kindness inspired by her. Story. That's all Hope, still alive, still working." At Hope's memorial service, hundreds came, people whose lives she'd touched, dogs she'd helped save. The mayor spoke, Dr. Chen spoke, but it was Marcus's words that everyone remembered. "Hope came into our lives when we needed her most," he said, standing before the crowd with Chance by his side. "She was broken, dying, abandoned. But she chose to live, chose to trust, chose to love. And in doing that, she taught us that no matter how dark things get, there's always hope. You just have to be brave enough to reach for it." He looked at the photo of Hope they'd placed at the front. Not a professional photo, but one Frank had taken with his phone. Hope covered in puppies, her eyes bright with joy, Marcus laughing beside her. "She wasn't just a dog," Marcus continued. "She was a teacher, a healer, a mother, a friend. And her legacy isn't ending, it's just beginning. Every time someone chooses kindness over cruelty, every time someone rescues instead of ignores, every time someone forgives instead of holds on to anger, Hope lives on." The crowd was crying openly now, but Marcus smiled through his own tears. "So, don't be sad that she's gone. Be grateful that she lived. Be grateful that a 5-year-old boy heard crying from an ATM and wouldn't walk away. Be grateful that love is stronger than hate, that hope is stronger than despair." He paused, looking at Frank, who nodded encouragingly. "Hope's body is gone, but her spirit lives on in every act of compassion, in every rescue, in every second chance given. She taught us that broken things can be beautiful, that scared things can be brave, that abandoned things can be treasured." Marcus knelt beside Chance, who was Hope's living legacy, carrying on her therapy work with the same intuitive understanding. "The story that started with a dog trapped in an ATM doesn't end with her death," Marcus said. "It continues with each of you. Every time you choose to help instead of walk by. Every time you listen when someone, human or animal, is crying for help. Every time you believe that love can heal what cruelty broke." He stood, his young voice strong and clear. "Hope showed us that miracles aren't always big, dramatic things. Sometimes they're as simple as a boy who listens, a grandfather who says yes, a stranger who stops to help. Sometimes miracles come with 4 legs and a wagging tail, teaching us that no matter how much darkness we've seen, we can still choose light." The service ended, but people lingered, sharing their own. Stories of how hope had touched their lives. The elderly woman whose depression lifted when Hope visited. The child with autism who spoke his first words while petting her. the veteran who found peace in her presence, the former dog fighter who found redemption in her forgiveness. As the sun set, Marcus and Frank stood by Hope's grave in Martha's farm, where she'd asked to be buried near where her puppies were born. Chance sat between them, a living reminder of Hope's legacy. "Do you regret it?" Marcus asked suddenly. "Taking on a sick dog when we had nothing?" Frank pulled his grandson close. "Never. Not for 1 second. Hope gave us everything that really matters: purpose, family, love. And she gave you back your voice, your smile, your belief that good things could still happen." Marcus nodded, looking at the simple stone that read, "Hope." She chose love over fear, healing over hurt, life over death. And she taught us to do the same. "Grandpa," Marcus said, "I want to be a veterinarian, like Dr. Chen and Dr. Brooks, but one who specializes in abused animals, who helps them heal and find families." "Your mother would be proud," Frank said, his voice thick with emotion. "Hope would be proud too," Marcus added. As they walked back to the farmhouse, Chance running ahead, Marcus stopped and looked back one more time. "Thank you," he whispered to the grave, "for everything." A warm breeze stirred the grass, and for just a moment, Frank could swear he heard the distant sound of a tail wagging against the ground, the sound of approval, the sound of love, the sound of hope. The story of the boy who found a German shepherd trapped in an ATM had become legend in their city. But for Frank and Marcus, it was simply their story. A story of how the worst day became the best day. How cruelty led to kindness. How abandonment led to adoption. How despair led to hope. And it all started with a 5-year-old boy who heard crying and wouldn't walk away. Years later, when Marcus did become a veterinarian specializing in rehabilitation of abused animals, he kept a photo on his desk, not of him in his cap and gown at graduation, not of his many awards and acknowledgments, but of that first day, him kneeling by a broken ATM, reaching out to amber eyes gleaming in the darkness, promising a dying dog that everything would be okay. And it was. It really was. Because hope lived on. In every animal saved, every person healed, every choice to love instead of ignore. She lived on in Marcus's work, in Chance's therapy visits, in the hundreds of dogs rescued by the Hope Foundation. She lived on in the story that people still told, about the baby who found a German shepherd trapped in a broken ATM, and what happened next that left everyone in tears, tears of sorrow for what she'd suffered, but more importantly, tears of joy for what she'd become, a symbol, a teacher, a reminder that no matter how broken, how abandoned, how hopeless things seem, there's always a chance for rescue, for redemption, for love. There's always hope. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below about where you're watching from. Subscribe to hear more incredible true stories of the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. Remember, every view, every share helps us spread hope's message of love and redemption to others who need to hear it. Together, we can make the world a kinder place, one rescue at a time.